I think we're back. My computer blinked and everything stopped.
Okay, Pete, I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully everybody else will come back in. Yeah, we have a computer blinkage here, and that stopped everything, and then now everybody has to come back in.
I thought it was just me. This is Ernie again with the 260 out in Palm Springs area. But yeah, someone had mentioned Prescott. I do have a call into Prescott. I'm also talking to Rags Rezzo, who's the chief of the South.
Mike Laney, I'm back. Everything went blank. It's called Legend Avionics, and they'll probably be able to help you because the guy who owns it is a Comanche specialist.
No, we got 17 people back, so that's a good thing. And it's still being recorded, so
anybody hear
we're
what I
going to be
said?
okay, I hope.
Listen, nobody hears me.
That's one way to thin the herd.
Yeah.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Mike Laney?
Yeah.
Did you hear my pitch for Legend Avionics in Prescott?
A little bit.
Okay, well, the guy who owns it, well, he used to own it, is a Comanche expert. So he probably can help whoever had the Comanche problem.
That was Legend, Lima Echo.
Yeah, Legend. You're welcome.
All righty. Well, welcome. Sorry about the bounce there. Everybody jump in, say who you are, where you are, and what you fly.
Again?
If you've already done it, you're excused. Wise ass.
I have a question for the gentleman who was looking for the install of the G5. Who does your regular maintenance?
My regular maintenance, I haven't found a shop I stick with yet. So it was up in Madeira where I bought the plane the first year for the annual. The last year I did a down in Waypoint Aviation in Riverside. It's not really Comanche guys. I don't know that I trust them that well. There's a guy supposedly out in Payson. They grew up working.
The reason I asked, an good A&P ought to be able to do
Well,
it.
I want to have it set up as a full HSI, which involves some soldering work apparently with the STEC, as well as putting in the magnetometer out in the wing or the back of the plane.
It's the magnetometer that's the difficult part.
And all those interfaces, I scare myself.
Well, that's smart.
Yeah, but having to work under that.
I understand the problem.
And folks, just jump in whenever you get a quiet spot like ETC and just say who you are, where you are, and what you fly. And I'm just getting some other people that are texting me saying, get me in. So you'll see me go dark for a
That's
bit.
an ominous statement. CJ.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
Really? So here's my airplane back. So you could go by and knock it and they wouldn't know.
Mike, you got a stuck mic.
Well, whether I got it stuck or not, I saw it.
Greece was supposed to be delivered today.
That is funny.
I'm from New York. I just
You want-
embarrass people. That's my nature,
Outstanding.
including myself.
I like having a mask that doesn't cover my eyeballs.
Oh, perfect. Hey, Craig,
I
with
had to wear the one over my
6701
eyeball.
pop, do you want to pop in and say
Another
who
one
you are,
taking
where you are, and
longer.
what you fly?
So I'll get that tonight.
Yeah, Craig Hammond from Lot for so
You know, I don't wear
1960, 250. Had it all since 2002. In fact, I'm heading to Michigan on Saturday, up to UP.
Welcome and thanks for being here. Cool deal. Gary Robinson, you're up.
Hey, what's up, CJ? Thanks. This is Gary. I'm in Tennessee, and I have a 1962 180 that I've had for about 5 years now.
Welcome. Yeah, that was a new airplane to you, and now she's getting to be an old friend.
Very true. Very true.
Thanks for being here. Russell Phillip, can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, good morning, CJ. Russell Phillip from Perth, Western Australia. I fly a PA-30, or at least I will again in a couple of weeks when we finally finish putting it back together. Not sure how long I'll be able to stick around this morning. I'm actually at work.
But this is way better than work.
True, but they insist I do some of it, so, you know, if I want to get paid.
Oh, geez. I mean, details.
Casual Friday.
Yeah,
Excellent.
not that
Oh my goodness. John's iPad. Can I put you on the spot?
John's iPad?
Oh gosh,
Me
that
again?
is you. My apologies. I didn't realize it was Futter. Nope, you're excused.
Oh, okay.
Douglas Taylor, can I hit you up?
Should ask Kelly's iPad.
Oh, Kelly. Okay, Kelly, you're on. If you can find the unmute.
Okay, I'm not computer savvy, so evil. Hi, new pilot. I'm not an owner of a plane, but I am a new pilot, and I just love checking in and learning about the Comanche because it's an amazing plane. So thank you for letting me join.
Welcome. And
Welcome to the
260C,
brotherhood.
you've been sucked into flying the right
it's
way.
a beautiful plane. When I go flying, I fly a Warrior, and it just doesn't even compare. But still, it's always good to get into the skies.
Yeah, yep, you're right. It's always better to be up, and if you can be up in a Comanche, it's even better.
So thank you.
So you welcome here. Larry, I'm gonna call on you.
Which Larry? Is there only one? I'm Larry Pride from San Diego. I've got a 59 180, and I think I bought it in about 1980. I've had it for a while.
We should ask a question. Has anybody on had their Comanche for more than 50 years?
Yes,
Okay, who was that?
that was Dave Gittleman.
Oh, Dave. Outstanding. And Gittleman kept a lot of us flying a lot safer than we would have otherwise. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else had their Comanche more than 50 years?
John Keenan has had his a year or two longer than I've had mine. He's supposed to be joining the group here shortly.
Very cool. And oh, that is neat. Okay. Good deal. And if Dennis Ankrum were here, he would qualify. Any other people who bought their planes new or have had it more than 50 years? Good deal. And then has anybody had their Comanche for less than 2 years? That was last week.
Actually, I guess I would qualify for that. I've had my Comanche since November, but I had my first Comanche from 2002.
Good deal.
Hey,
And John Keenan, we just saw you come in, and I heard that you've had your Comanche for more than 50 years. If so, welcome and congratulations.
Okay, it is 7:30, so I'm going to do my thing here. First, I'm going to mute everybody, just like that, and then the program tonight is Jason from the SureFly Electronic Ignition, going to tell us all about what they have put together for Comanches, and he's got a good PowerPoint plan to show to give you what's going on. So with that, I will suggest that all of you go to the speaker view so that you'll be able to see his presentation and who's talking at the time, and go from there. So here we go. Jason, you're on.
One more thing before Jason starts, just because we have a little change in procedure tonight. Normally, we ask everybody to put their questions into the chat window, and we still do. But Jason said, we spoke, we always do our test flight before, and Jason said, you know what? Throw your questions into the chat window, but he's going to answer them as things go. So feel free to put them in there, but also if you've really got a burning one, unmute, speak, and just please remember to remute. Thanks a lot, you guys.
okay. So first, just audio check. Can you hear me?
Loud.
Okay, perfect. So first, CJ, thanks for reaching out to us to put this together. We always enjoy talking to airplane guys, and so kind of as CJ mentioned, what I'd like to do is, I don't want to, go lecture you guys. So what I'd like to do is we'll just go through the 1,000-foot view of normal things, and then we'll go back to just a kind of a guided discussion. There's, with the product line, that there's lots of questions. We spend lots of time on the phone with customers, and so bang for the buck. I think that's the best value of your guys' time this evening. So let me first just do a quick little intro on myself. I have a degree in electronics. have a commercial pilot's license, a CFI, II, instructor for a while at a 141 school. I started my aviation career at semi-flight at DFW Airport. I knew nothing about airplanes. First night, I begged them to hire me. They finally hired me. First night, they walked me to the Citation 650 BizJet and said, "There it is." And so it's one of those times, things I just remember forever. And so they said, "There's a squawk book up there. Go fix it." And so I opened the book, and it said, the A/P does not couple to the ILS at KJFK. Now, imagine you knew nothing about airplanes. That was total Greek to me. And so I went and talked to my supervisor, got a ground school, started taking lessons shortly after, and was completely hooked. And so, long story told short, I was a simulator tech at SureFly, at SemiFlight, and one of my jokes is I got in the right seat program and did a lot of time flying. And one of my jokes is I may have been the lowest time pilot to ever get a Gulfstream type rating, but they actually gave me a SIC type and a G2, G3, and I may have had 400 hours total time at that time. So, but went on from there to work for Bell Helicopter, worked in flight test, instrumentation, and did that for 7 or 8 years. Got tired of aviation, and so I decided to go in the beer business. And so I worked for Miller Brewery for a while, and then I was hired by PlanePower to run the business for them. And so I managed that business, general manager for I think 4 or 5 years. And when Hartzell Engine Technologies purchased the company, that left me unemployed. And so we started SureFly Electronic Ignition. And so just as far as experience, I built an RV6. We've probably been involved in at least 5 or 6 different airplanes, mostly RV7s, RV8s. I've never owned a Comanche, but I do have a Comanche 180 engine in my RV6. Came out of a Comanche 180, and it's been a great engine for me. I jokingly say that my wife owns a Stearman, which is technically correct. We purchased a 1945 Stearman a year ago, and so she lets me drive it. She does not have her license, but we have a great time with it. And so between that and SureFly, I stay pretty busy. The RV6 I built as an A model, flew it around for 6 years with the Mazda rotary engine on the front of it, and that was quite entertaining. I spoke to a lot of people about that, and so I do not recommend a science fair project as a power plant for your for your airplane. It ran great. Just this, we can talk about that a little later if you're interested. But it had some challenges. So I'm going to just kind of run through the presentation here. And apologies, we had some technical issues with the presentation, so I didn't get to update to my name. But basically, the SureFly is a solid state magneto replacement. Right now, we're allowed to replace one magneto with the SureFly. And we'll talk about some of the different models in that, but why SureFly? And that is, we believe that the modern electronics in SureFly vastly increases the reliability, safety, performance is kind of sometimes a marketing term that gets thrown around. We really think the true value of the SureFly is that it's a 2,400-hour unit. You stick it on the engine and forget about it. You don't open it up. You don't do anything to it. It really is it's as close to zero maintenance item on an airplane than there's I think you'll ever find. Hit all those. There's really no actions that against annual or so there's really and so when we were selecting vendors, we went through, sampled a couple of works, and the folks that we use are very good, and it's some of the best that we've ever seen. So very good. On the performance aspect, we get asked like spark energy and hot spark, and folks use terms that are kind of marketing stuff there, but when on our test bench and the way that this test is set up, it's very important to compare apples to apples, and so differences in the test bench setup will vary the numbers greatly. But on our test bench, we measured a 6-cylinder slick magneto, brand new slick magneto, turning 2,700 RPM. We think that is where it's going to create the most energy to the spark plug. And so at 2,700 RPM, a slick mag delivers around 45 millijoules of energy on our test bench. We then took that information and went to the test cell. And so we ran from 45 up to 120 millijoules of energy, again, on our test bench. And we really found that, once the air fuel ratio is lit, you can't make it more lit. And though adding extra energy really had no tangible performance gains that we could see. And the detriments were it made the unit draw a lot more power and created a lot more heat. And so we went back to the 45 millijoule level. And so that's what we do. Once the ignition system exceeds 400 RPM, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, but below 400 RPM, it's in the starting mode. And in that mode, that is where we found that it did make a difference on the amount of energy delivered to the spark plug. And so in starting mode below 400 RPM, we deliver 60 millijoules of energy, and so that extra energy will help burn through maybe a little a plug that's got a little extra fuel on it, or maybe a little oil mist or something on there. So one of the feedbacks we get is that hot starts with the SureFly has been drastically improved. So the accuracy of the timing, when we install the SureFly, the timing window, and we can talk about that in the discussion a little bit, but that's a half of a degree window. And so if you get it within that, you're way better than a magneto normally is. It does operate in two different modes. It'll operate in variable timing mode or fixed timing mode. And so in the fixed timing mode, it is a solid state magneto. In variable timing mode, once it exceeds the 400 RPM, it rolls over to base timing. So for most of us, like homing powered aircraft, that's going to be 25 degrees, maybe 20 for some angle valve engines. But and then from there, as long as manifold pressure is greater than 24 inches, you're at base timing. So anytime you're above 75% power, takeoffs, those things, you're back to base timing, just like the engine was certified for. It's not till you climb to a higher altitude or start pulling the power back that you start reducing manifold pressure, and once it drops below 24 inches, it'll start varying the timing. And we can go out to a total of 38, but for most of us, the power setting we use is going to be in the 30 to 32 degree timing range is where most of us are going to live. I touched on the value aspect of it a little earlier. It's really no inspections, no rebuilds. There's no maintenance parts other than at the 2,400 hour mark. Because it is a critical part in the eyes of the FAA, we have to do an inspection. So there's a required inspection at 2,400 hours. We believe through the data we've seen so far that they will be inspected, tested, and then put on an IRAN type program. The value is you're not spending money on maintenance. No offense to the AMPs and IAs in the attendance tonight, but you put some money in fuel instead of maintenance. And then in the variable timing mode, it allows you to maybe run on a little less fuel. And I'll save some of those topics till we get back to the guided discussion, because I think that's where a lot of people are going to be interested in what we say. This is kind of a spec sheet section, and really it's solid state electronics. We designed it to be a plug and play for a magneto, your existing magneto, and so the 4-cylinder units are going to use existing drive gear. The 6-cylinder unit is going to plug right into the existing drive gear that's already there. If you have an old Bendix mag, the monster things, you can save up to 2 pounds. On the 6-cylinder unit, 6-cylinder Lycoming unit, that's about the same weight as a slick mag. So it's pretty much a push there for this system. It is a wasted spark system, so we're firing opposing cylinders. So when number 1 cylinder fires on, coming up on compression, the opposite cylinder, number 2, is firing as it's coming up on exhaust stroke. We knew that we were going to have a incredible battle ahead of us, and battle may not be the right term, but we knew we were going to have sufficient work just getting the ignition itself certified. And so instead of including harness and plugs in that, we decided to stay with the existing slick style harness. And so it does require the slick style harness, and you're going to reuse your existing spark plugs. We will revise our installation instructions to go up to a 36 thousandths gap. Standard gap right now is 19 to 24, I think, maybe 15 to 20. One of my early kind of acid tests to ensure that the spark went to the spark plug and it wouldn't arc out internally within the unit I set up a test, and you referred to it as the acid test. So I had plugs gapped at 80 thousandths of an inch. They were under pressure. And then I put that whole apparatus into an altitude chamber and took it up to 80,000 feet. And so if you ever visit the shop, and everyone has an open invitation, if you're ever coming through Granbury, Texas, please stop in. We'll give you the nickel tour. But one of the stops is we affectionately call the Hall of Shame, and it's all those projects that we would have an idea, test it. Most of the time we'd print out the pattern or whatever we're going to do, and we'd pour them overnight, come back next morning and test. It would fail miserably most times, so we'd start over again. But that's the Hall of Shame. So if you're ever coming through this part of the country, please stop in. We're about 40 miles southwest of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So have cheap fuel, lots of lots of courtesy cars, and lots of places in town to eat. So stop in and visit us sometime. The current rating at 14.2, this 4 cylinders around 550 milliamps, so just right around a half an amp. The 6 cylinders will run about an amp. On 28 volts, that's half of that. We designed the unit to run on 8.5 to 30 volts. The sensor range is 5 to 45 inches of mercury. The temperature range, actually, I think that 250 is a misprint there, because I think we tested a little higher than that. So I think we're good to around 325. And we've actually tested a little higher than that. I think if you get to 3,500 RPM, you've got other issues. And then we talked about spark energy, and then the 2,400 hour TDO. So at 2,400 hours, you're going to pull it off, send it back to us, and we'll check it out. We have 4 models that cover every mag in the, we think we cover every mag in the fleet out there. The SIM, by the way, stands for SureFly Ignition Module. And so the SIM4N, our marketing guy was really creative. So SIM4 is a 4-cylinder, and then the N is for non-impulse, and then we have a SIM4P, which is an impulse. So it's designed to reuse existing drive gear. So the 4N here, you'll see the taper shaft. So if you have a non-impulse mag, you're going to pull the gear off of that, reinstall it, and install the SureFly on there. So the 4P, sorry, got trigger happy here. The 4P, as you can see, it's a little hard to tell from this picture, but the only difference really is the shaft is extended out 3/4 of an inch, and the gear interface looks a lot different than the 4N. And on the 4P is designed to replace your impulse coupled unit, and you're going to remove the impulse coupled drive gear itself and install it on the front of this. So internally, from the mounting flange back, they are one and the same. They're identical. So the only difference is the interface and the gear that is connected to it. The SIM6L, again, SureFly Ignition module, 6-cylinder, and then L is for Lycoming. And like I said, our marketing guy got really creative. We could replace, either impulse or non-impulse on the Lycomings. And it's not a whole lot to say other than, same things. You reuse the gear. On the Lycomings, the drive gear, one end of it is inserted into the engine case, and we provide the second point of contact for support for the drive gear. The Continental is a little different arrangement. You'll see that in just a second. Here's the 6C, and as you can see, there's not a pilot there to act as a securing or anchor for the drive gear, so the 6C is a little bit different. The installation, that we think that the big advantage to the SureFly unit is the installation. Again, we wanted to make it as plug and play as possible for existing slick mags. So there's a little accessory or access port. Let me go back here. You can see it right at the bottom, the chrome or nickel plated plug at the bottom of that picture there. When you unscrew that cap, there's actually 4 dip switches underneath that cap. And so those 4-dip switches allow you to select the base configuration or base timing and whether or not it will operate in advanced or fixed timing mode. And then on the 6 cylinders, whether it's a left or right rotation. And we'll talk about that a little bit because that's one of the big tech calls that we get called about. So we'll touch on that in a minute. The installation we believe is incredibly easy. I've installed countless by this point, but you configure the switches, you apply power to the timing post, and when power is applied to the timing post, it does 2 things. The first operation the unit does is it reads the switches and it configures the unit, and then it goes into timing mode. And in timing mode, the LED lights up, and the LED will be on with the exception of the 1/2 degree window that is it's out, and that's to tell you that that's where the top dead center is on the sensor. So with the LED out, you're going to install it with number 1 cylinder also at top dead center, and so we think that's pretty easy. And you know, I've used a couple buzz boxes in my day, and I'll take this installation any day of the week. The manifold pressure source, if you're going to run it in advanced timing mode, you need to tap into existing manifold pressure source. There's lots of options. We provide the hose, but we do not provide the connection to your manifold source, just because there's so many different variations in that we felt like whatever hardware we provided would probably end up in the trash can in most cases. So you need to plumb it to your manifold pressure source if you're in variable timing. Connect your existing P-lead as is, reinstall your slick harness, and then move the power over to the power terminal, and it's ready to go. We talked about this a little earlier, but from below 400 RPM, it fires at top dead center. From 400 to 1500, and that's actually a typo. I don't know why I didn't catch that earlier, so apologies. But basically, after 400, it just rolls over to base timing, and then it's really based off of manifold pressure with some limits on RPM. Just about every single engine aircraft that we're aware, I think there's a couple that were typos and misprints, but I think all the single engine aircraft are available now, and the vast majority are available in advanced timing now. We recently got the larger displacement engines approved for variable timing, and that's as of a week or so ago. And so if you haven't looked at our AML lately, go to our website and check that out. But those are just about everything's approved now. The turbocharged, and actually this hasn't been updated again, apologies there. And the turbos it's only available in fixed timing. And so we can talk about that in a little bit. I'll kind of explain why we do that and why we say we don't want you running in advanced timing. Sorry, I fat fingered it here. The normally aspirated twins are packages at the FAA right now. We expect within the next couple of weeks we'll have authorization to put them on the normally aspirated twins in advanced timing mode. So stand by. We're working on it. And then the other recent certification that we got approved was a converter box to convert our P-lead signal into 2 possible waveforms. The first is it converts our signal to a signal that's compatible with the Horizon tachometers. That input's a little different compared to most tachs. And so the TAC 2 is now certified. We're waiting on the MIDO for our parts manufacturing authorization for it. We expect that tomorrow. I expected it this Monday as well. So, but it's at the FAA. We expect it any day now. So once we get the approval, we can start making them, and then we can sell them. It'll be used as an installation aid with our airframe STC. That's kind of the end of the presentation here, so I'm going to go back to the Zoom interface here, and we'll just open up the Q&A session here, and I'm going to talk on a couple things that I said I'd touch base with. So the turbos. So normally, because we don't want to advance the timing above 75% power, we don't, because above 75% power is when we have the possibility of detonation. And so for the turbo aircraft, you're always going to be fixed timing, because most of the time you're going to be greater than 24 inches anyway. The risk in that would be if you're at altitude and you had a manifold pressure line break. Now the SureFly unit would interpret that as low manifold pressure, and it'd run the advance out, and it would probably be okay, but I'm certainly not willing to bet my life on it, and not any of your lives either. So for that option, I can't say under all possible scenarios that wouldn't be detrimental to an engine. So for that, turbo aircraft will always be fixed timing. The other thing I wanted to touch base with was right and left rotation. We get a lot of tech calls on that, and it's very difficult thing to talk about, and we struggled with a way to make it simple and easy. And what we wound up with was every magneto right now, whether it's a Bendix, has a right or left on it. And so a Bendix will be an S6 REN or LN, and that's a right or left-hand rotation. And so we get a lot of calls thinking that rotation direction is talking about a prop, and then in the Continentals, the magnetos are mounted backwards, so it gets very confusing. So if you're replacing a slick mag and it has R for rotation, then you're going to select R for the SureFly rotation. If it has an L on it, then you're going to select left-hand rotation. That's we can kind of start walking through these. We can start taking questions at this point if y'all want it, and we'll kind of hit on some stuff. I'm sure you guys have questions, so let's just open it up to Q&A at this point.
Yeah,
Peter,
if you
unmute
want to jump in with questions, and unmute yourself and go for it.
We do have a couple in the chat window.
Okay. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can see the chat window real quick.
Sure. So
okay, yeah.
from, yep.
Okay.
So from C.S. Flanagan, and if you could read the question, because we do have a number of people who are attending the conference call, dial-in. And for those of you who are doing that, who have questions, *6 should unmute your mic and then remute it.
I have no flying partner. I'm not sure on that. Is we're igniting a much airfield range, and so what that allows you to do is go the same speed or slower on less fuel, but that is such a huge swap to brush the paint, a broad stroke, if you will. It really depends on how well balanced your engine is. As I stated earlier, my 0360 A1A came out of Comanche 180. It's identical to Comanche 180 except for the exhaust system and the main jet on the carburetor. And because of the configuration of the RV, I think we get a little more ram air effect in the intake. And so I wound up having to drill out the main jet considerable. It was pretty large, and I don't remember the exact number. CJ and I were talking about that, and I meant to look it up, but I want to say it was like 188 or something. And it's a hell of a hole in the main jet. But otherwise, it's just too lean on takeoff. And so, but in cruise flight, I typically cruise the RV at 21-24, so 21 inches, 2,400 RPM, and my engine is incredibly well balanced. I typically see less than 10 degree spread in EGTs and usually less than 5 degree CHTs. And now I'm running dual SureFlies, and I have, CJ and I talked about this a lot. So once you're at full throttle, one of the things that I've discovered is you can vary the butterfly or the throttle plate on the carburetor, making very minute adjustments. And so you make an adjustment and then go back to fuel and tweak your fuel setting and going back and forth. But by doing that, I can usually get, like I said, within 5 to 10 degrees, typically of CHTs and EGTs. With my engine, I can routinely run, 50 to 100 degrees lean at peak. I've been as lean as like 110, 120. What we're starting to figure out is that as you lean, if you look at the fuel flow parabola, 50 rich, 50 lean is about the same, and you're going the same speed on just less fuel. Once you get past that, it really is how slow do you want to go. A couple of years ago, we were going up to Oshkosh with a group of friends, and we were in the back, and I was just controlling my speed by the amount of fuel I put in the engine. And so, again, mine's really well balanced. I play around with it a lot, but, and so I can typically run 21, 24, burning about 7 to 7.2 an hour at 8,500 feet. And that's a typical setting for me. But I've also I was flying a 182 recently, and the fuel flow was horrible on it. And we couldn't really get it past, once you leaned it beyond about 12.5 gallons an hour, it started, and this was with the mag, this wasn't even with SureFly, but once you got it below 12.5, it would start, you start getting a lean miss. And so, so for those reasons, we don't really make a fuel savings cost, but if you have, if you go through the GAMI or whatever process you want to go, you balance your injectors, you can, operate it much leaner, and it really becomes a question of how slow do you want to go. So anyone have any follow-up questions of that before we move on to the next one? I know I talk a lot, so at least my wife tells me I do.
I actually wanted to, sorry, this is CJ. I do want to jump in on this particular point, no others. There is a question, do we have any A&Ps or Lycoming experts on? Because I want to just point out that when Jason took his Comanche 180 engine and put it in the RV, or even RV6, Jason?
Correct.
Yep. You drilled out and therefore changed your carburetor from the one that we standard use in a Comanche. And so the question that I wanted to discuss is whether it is safe for us with our old style carburetors and our not drilled out, whatever it is, to run as lean of peak as you're able to in your RV. And that was the thing. And I actually want to ask you, but I also want to ask those who have Lycoming expertise who may be on to just quickly discuss that point.
Yeah, well, I'll say, I'm certainly not a Lycoming expert, but, and, the RV guys, so my basis for making that change in with the main jet was a long history with the RV guys. And that's pretty common with those guys of drilling the jets out to get enough fuel for takeoff, so that you are, running lean operation for takeoff. So. And the legality of doing that on a certified aircraft, I can't speak to. So,
CJ, this is Dave Gittleman.
Yeah, Dave, thank you.
The 180 Comanche had a modification to the carburetor, which enriched the mixture. The initial carburation was lean, which was incorrect. And so there is a mod out that's approved, and if your carburetor has that mod, it's stamped with, guess what, a big M for modification.
M for mod.
Right. I don't know exactly how big that hole is that they put in it, but I'm guessing it's pretty close to what you put in, Jason. And I have been arguing with Lycoming for 40 years about this. I finally got somebody there who actually said, "Oh yeah, there is a mod like that," because they always deny it, and every time I buy an engine from them, I have to specify that they have to give me the modified carburetor.
Well, and I do remember when I looked at I was doing the research on the RV forum, and I seen the drill size, and I went out and I got the drill size, and I looked at it, and it's like, that can't be right. It's a massive hole. And so I went back, and then I called a couple of the RV experts, and they said, "Yep, no, that's the right setting." So
Well, okay, this is huge. So the reason that I went here, I have to confess, is I checked with Zach Grant, and he said, be careful doing it on the ones, I think it would be, I'm not sure, Dave and Jason, that he knows about the M thingies.
He may not.
May not.
Yeah.
The one side effect to that is, at least in the RV, I assume that wouldn't be much different in the 180s, but is now you have for idle, I have to aggressively lean on the ground and this was back when I had magnetos. I don't know that I would have to do it as much so with the SureFlies, but it just became habit. But because it's such a big hole, I had to lean aggressively for taxi ground operation.
I don't have that issue.
Okay. Yeah, I would. My mixture knob, if for the travel, let's say it's 4 inches, I'm probably 3 to 3.5 inches out into cutoff is a normal position for taxi for me.
Okay.
And,
Just as a, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, this is, again, I apologize. I was going to take some photos and just ran out of time. But, as a science fair project, I get to do, my RV has been the test mule for a lot of the, SureFly setup. And so just as a science fair project, I have not cleaned a spark plug in the last 4, maybe 5 conditional inspections. And I haven't re-gapped a plug on the airplane. I wanted to see how far it would go. And so right now, if I was guessing, I'd say I'm probably averaging about 60 thousandths gap on all 8 plugs right now. And my plugs are just not dirty. They look more like an automotive plug when I take them out to check them. Then so leaning aggressively, and then with the I don't know that that's all SureFly, but I think any electronic ignition do the same thing, but just more efficient combustion. You just don't see the carboned up, black, fouled up plugs that you normally see.
Awesome. Dave Gittleman, can you and I get together afterwards to write up the M's?
Sure.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in on that, or you may just move on to other questions?
Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, so this is Hunter News here. I'm from Grand Prairie, Texas, here just down the road.
Oh, yeah.
I put on there, and I think I talked to you because I had some trouble shooting issues, but dropping a spark plug didn't help my case. So
yeah, I tried that as well. It didn't work for me either.
Yeah. Hey, when you told me to take the temperature probe out, and I was like, all right, well, it's running great. But I would say in the Comanche, putting it in, super straightforward. It goes against everything you know, timing the mag to go to top dead center. Running the power wire, I would say it would be the biggest pain in the Comanche because the battery's in the back. But I had the avionics shop run a 14 gauge wire because I knew I was going to be doing it. But going to the spark plugs being clean, all the annuals I've done so far is the spark plugs on the lower right, because the mag's on the left, are spotless. And on the lower right, or correction, lower left, they're got lead on them, even though I leaned aggressively. So I'm curious it's not stated in the STC, but putting the electric ignition on both bottoms and having the regular mag on the tops of the cylinders.
So there's actually a service instruction from Lycoming that says try it one way and then go try it the other way, and whichever way is smoother engine operation, leave it that way. So if you shoot me an email, I'll try to find that for you, but there is a service instruction from Lycoming that gives direction to try it multiple different ways and run it whichever way you deem is the smoothest.
Oh, okay. I'll have to give that a try. The only other thing that I would say to comment, I think I am saving a little bit of gas because my EGTs are slightly lower, so I'm able to lean a little bit more aggressively. But the only thing that I have that would, I guess, not even really walk during run up, I have an old style Bendix switch. So it's just right, left, both, and then I have a push to start. And I guess there's an issue with the switch where it grounds out and there's a little bit of an engine stumble on the run up. And I've negated it a little bit by doing the run up at 1800 RPM and then do a prop cycle at 2000. But I think installed the ElectroAir switch ignition to just negate it altogether. I don't know if you guys had any kind of updates towards fixing that issue.
Yeah, so it's so let's talk about the issue first. So what we found was that there doesn't really seem to be any rhyme or reason of which manufacturers, which part numbers, but what happens is that as you're transitioning through the right, left, both, the transition between right and left, it's actually killing or grounding both magnetos out. And it's done that forever. But a magneto, because when we kill a mag, we're just grounding the coil itself. And so when you unground it, it's instantaneously back on. Well, with the SureFly, because we wanted to ensure that when it came up, and started providing spark, that it was at the right time, it knew everything that's going on. And so right now we have 100 millisecond basically self-check built in. We want to make sure that the sensor levels were correct. It knew where it's at and providing correct timing. And so that 100 milliseconds, because it's grounding both of them out as you transition, the mag is not firing, and the SureFly takes 100 milliseconds to come on. And so you get most people report nothing. Then a percentage of them have a very noticeable, just momentary engine, almost like a book, and comes back up. And then in extreme cases, we get a backfire. So there's a couple mitigations to this. Let me back what we're doing about it. So what SureFly is doing about it is we are testing a build that instead of the 100 milliseconds, it comes back alive in 2 milliseconds. And so the testing has gone great, but we don't want to try to fix a switch by injecting a build or something that we really haven't fully explored. So we're being extremely cautious with it, but expect a new build to be available down the road that will go to 2 milliseconds. Now, what we have found is to mitigate that in the interim is there's a couple procedures that work, and we were doing some test flying on an A36 today, and so we were playing with it, and it had the just noticeable engine blip when you transition. And so by turning the switch extremely slow, like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, the transition between right and left, it was not even noticeable at all. So try slowing down the cadence, which you change the transition between right and left. Go really slow, and I think it'll fix that. The other, I shouldn't say fix it, it will mask it. The other process that works really well is do your run up, get a both RPM reading, and then check left or right, whichever your setup is, and then the other, and then pull the engine back to idle, and then transition back to both. And what happens there is that 100 milliseconds at 1,000 RPM and maybe one ignition event versus at 1,800 maybe a couple of ignition events that we miss. So those are the two that we get reported regularly that mask the problem with the switch.
I gotcha. Yeah, at a lower RPM, it definitely doesn't affect it as much. So yeah, that's good to know. All right, I appreciate it, man. You bet.
And I want to talk about. Sorry, I'm a pointer with my pen, so I'm putting the pen down. So we've sold got quite a bit of in the fleet now, or out in the real world, and anytime as a manufacturer, anytime you start as the fleet expands, you find the more and more interesting installations. And so the SureFly unit, we're very picky about where we want power to come from. And I'm sorry, but we, with the battery in the back, we want power to come straight off of the power post. I'm sorry, straight off the power post or positive post of the battery. and that's twofold. The first is that every POH says if you have a radio fire, the first thing it tells you to do is turn off your master switch. So if you're on the switch side of the electrical system and you have a radio fire or something like that, and you turn the master switch off, now you just eliminated one side of your ignition as well. And so we believe that that was not an acceptable mitigation. So we want the power to come straight from the battery. So short of the wire failing or the battery failing, in our system safety analysis, those are the only two things that those are the things that we thought was the least amount of risk. And so when the battery's in the back, it's tough, and I'm sorry, but that's really where it needs to come from. The other aspect of that is electrical thing, and our electrical engineer can talk circles around this, but basically the electronic ignition is a big inductive load, and so if you imagine a 4-inch fire hose that's 200 feet long and you're running a couple thousand gallons a minute to it and you shut it off, you've got all that pressure coming behind it. And so that's what happens with electronics as well. So what happens is when you're turning on and off loads like that, you get an inductive kick. And so as that wire gauge goes down and lengthens, that inductive kick gets bigger and bigger. And so the 14 gauge wire, we've deemed that that's acceptable in any application. And just as a side note, we actually our acid test to make sure that the unit would survive those kicks was we ran the unit on like 100 and I think it's 120 or maybe it's 150 feet of 22 gauge wire. And so 14 gauge wire straight to the battery, those are very important aspects of the installation for SureFly.
Just one quick note because of Hunter's question about the switch panel. So this actually came up at the ElectroAir ComancheZOOM, and they confirmed that their switch is actually works fine on both systems. They said they're great.
Correct. Yeah. So what happens, and the ElectroAir is a great option because what their system does, to my knowledge, and I haven't personally played with them. I've looked at what they have online, and so what they're doing is they have two basically toggle switches. So you have a left and a right, so you can never have both of them off at the same time unless it's intentional. I've done a lot of experimental aircraft wiring, and I have a personal hatred towards mag key switches for multiple reasons, but usually they're tricky, they're a pain. In an emergency situation, I think that it may or may not be a good solution. But when I wire up an experimental airplane, the mag switches are always on toggle switches, just like the ElectroAir. So that is if you're so inclined, that is a good solution for the mag dropout.
The other good news is that both SureFly and ElectroAir have agreed to do group buy specials for the Comanches, which is pretty exciting. So the other good news is not only can you get SureFly for a slight discount, but ElectroAir is discounting the switch panel. So it's a win-win.
Nice.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Jason, for supporting the Comanches this way. We were really excited and pleased, and we're sorry about the delay in getting those posted. We'll get them done.
Well, I don't know. There's been something going on in the world. I don't know what that was, but that's all. So,
we're just so happy to have you guys both supporting Comanches, and we're just so happy to have, and you guys are both been complimentary to each other and supportive of each other, and we just think that's a great model for the whole world of aviation.
It's yeah. So I'll deviate just for a second, but as at PlanePower, my very first show, one of the first things I did was went and walked over into the Hartzell booth, and they kind of looked at me funny, but I went over and introduced myself. But at the end of the day, our opinion, and I've talked to Mike quite a bit as well, but our opinion is we need to get the best product for the customer, and I have no qualms about promoting the ElectroAir if we think that's a better fit for you. We're also very good friends with EMAG or PMAG guys, that's in the experimental world. And so, we actually refer quite a few people to them and just say, I think it's a better fit for you over there. So, at the end of the day, it's about getting what's right for the customer. And, I'm okay with that. And Mike and I have had long conversations with the shows, and he's a good guy. So I think it's a good system as well. Let's run through these. I don't know what time frame I see here, but it looks like we're coming up on 7:30. So let's run through a couple of these, and it may prompt some more questions because I could go on for hours. The next question is there special equipment for timing, or will a buzz box work? So everything is built into the unit. As I mentioned earlier, when you power the unit up via the timing post, the first thing it does is reads the switches in. The second thing it does is it goes into timing mode. And in timing mode, the LED, you rotate the shaft so the LED goes out, and then you make sure that you install it with number 1 cylinder at top dead center. The LED stays out, and so that is the only timing process. So no buzz box needed. Any questions or comments on that, or do we move on to the next question? Is the variable timing automatic? And the answer to that is yes. If it's configured for variable timing mode, as we said earlier, the above 400 RPM, below 400 RPM, it fires at top dead center. When you exceed 400, it goes to base timing, and then it's based off of RPM and manifold pressure. Does anybody have questions on the timing or any of those? I'm gonna be surprised. The next question in the list here is warranty, and so it's 2 years from date of install. We've been, we've always felt like the thing that sets us apart for whether it was PlanePower or SkyTec, was our customer service. And so it's 2 years, but if it's a SureFly issue, we're going to make it right. So so the short answer is 2 years. Give me a call, and if you have a problem, and we'll work it out. The next question is the timing is automatic when set up.
Hey, that was somebody answering the question that had.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. The next question in this is what should you expect in CHTs and EGT changes? And so that really has to do with how much fuel you're putting in the engine. So if you're flying rich of peak and you're configured for variable timing, in those modes, expect about a 5-degree cylinder temp increase. Because you're putting the same fuel in, we're lighting it off at 30, 32, 38, whatever it is, earlier in the combustion cycle, giving it longer to burn in the cylinder. Physics dictate that there's no free ride. And so by doing that, you will see a little increase in cylinder temps, maybe a couple degrees in oil temps, or if you but you're going faster, so you're getting a little more cooling. So my personal experience has been a couple degrees if you're 50 degrees rich of peak, or the true value of the system is go to the lean of peak side of the equation, and now you're going the same speed you were going before on less fuel. And I will say we've done a lot of cooling climb tests for the FAA, and so that process is basically using the airplane climbing to VY up to service ceiling. And every time that we've done, every time in every model that we've tested, when we go back and we have to correct the numbers for hot day, and there's all kinds of formulas that we have to use, but when we get through at the end of the day, we have always been at least a couple degrees cooler on that climb compared to the magnetos. So we got a bunch of questions. I got to get going here. The next question is, how similar is this EI to a Lycoming branded one? And I can tell you now that Lycoming came on board with us fairly early in this process, and as a development partner. And so the Lycoming version that they're selling is the exact hardware that's in a SureFly, they have a little variation in their timing curve. And so really that's the only variation. I'm not at liberty to say what that is, but it is a slight variation. But other than that, it is one and the same. The SureFlies are blue, the Lycomings are black, and that's about all I can say about that. The next question is, it says, my Comanche has 2 impulse coupled mags. Which side do you recommend installing it on? So this is another popular question we get. And so my personal opinion is, if you have an impulse coupled mag on your engine, you should replace it first. And for the reason of the impulse coupling itself is very mechanical in nature, and therefore most likely to break and cause problems. When we started the company, I went out and rounded up some magnetos from friends that in shops, local shops, and every mag that that was loaned to me had been removed because of hard spring issues, and every one of those had a broken wrap spring in the impulse coupler itself. And so, not to pick on them, but I've had an experimental friend that had an impulse coupling come apart in flight. Luckily, there's an airport underneath him, but so just the sheer simplicity of the SureFly. If you have an impulse coupling, my recommendation is always to replace it first. We also, one of our business partners, Grumman guy, has an impulse coupling, but his opinion was you should replace the non-impulse so that you're starting on both. And so that's his choice. And we have, I would say that majority of the people are replacing impulse, but do have some folks that are doing the other side so they can start on both.
Just a quick question, Jason, going back to
Yes, sir.
Lycoming mag, does it have the automatic advance that you also have?
It will have advance. It is configured at Lycoming though, and so I think eventually they will have an advance in there, but I don't know what their rollout for that is.
Okay, thank you.
According to Brian Costello, it's fixed timing, and cautions we should not fuss with the dip switches.
Oh yeah, I do know that they do not want you changing the switch settings themselves. So and I'll talk to them about that to see how they want me to handle that question. So the next question in line here is, are we considering working on a replacement for the Bendix dual mag? And so the short answer is yes, we will have a replacement for that one day. We have one of our partners is a Cardinal 177 guy, and so he has a very vested interest in a dual mag replacement. We we have to get the dual installation certified first, and so once we get the normally aspirated twins certified, our next project will be to get dual installations approved, and once that's approved, then we can go after the Bendix dual drive. I really can't give you any kind of honest answer of how far along that will be, but I can say it's probably at least a year out and maybe a couple. But it is on our plate, and we do have intentions of building a replacement for that. So the next question, I'm going through a couple of these, like there's some responses to some of the questions. So the equipment, is it compatible with the Ray J Turbo STC? And so as we spoke earlier, yeah, you can, on a turbocharged aircraft, it's fine, but you must run it in fixed timing mode for the reasons we talked about before. If it's, you're going to be above the 24-inch threshold most of the time anyway. And so, if you had that line break, then it would run it out, and whether or not that's safe, I can't guarantee under all circumstances that it would, that would be okay. So the next one's a group buy, and so CJ and I are working on that. We'll release that when we get to that point. So hopefully we'll make that very quick. The next question line is, does it cover removal of the shower spark component? And that is yes. If you're replacing the shower sparks, you remove that, and because it's not necessary, not needed for the SureFly installation. And then the next question in this is my experience with SkyTec and PlanePower affect the SureFly startup. And I mentioned the airplanes earlier. All of the partners in this business were PlanePower and SkyTec folks. They, like I said, they brought me in to manage the alternator business. But all of us are airplane guys. Everyone owns an airplane. Everyone has a license and owns an airplane. And so we look at it as when we're doing these projects, we want to do something when we. At the end of the day, we want a product that we would put on our airplanes. And so, I think that's one of the things that makes us stand out a little bit in, compared to some of the other companies, and is that, we understand, we work on airplanes. And so we think, and maybe you guys can tell me otherwise, but we think that at the end of the day, ease of installation, those things are kind of maybe put us above some of the other competitors in the market. And we, that was, that philosophy was, I can't take credit for starting that. That was kind of the culture of both SkyTec and SureFly when I came aboard. And so, we just felt like we needed to continue that customer service base and carry on those traditions. So. The next question, sorry, I need to. So the next question is performance gains, and kind of like the fuel savings gain. It's really hard to quantify that and make a claim, because again, it's dependent on how if you're rich at peak, the power is going to be much different than if you're lean at peak. And my personal experience of running lean at peak is, how slow do you want to go? How rough are you willing to tolerate the engine running? One of the things that we are learning, and I think it's going to be more and more prevalent as more folks start, running electronic ignition, we had some customers that complained about rough running engines, or a customer that's complaining about a rough running RV10. And so, we were back and forth, spent a lot of time on the phone with them. And then at Oshkosh one year, he was there, and so we talked about it. So we pulled the data card off his aircraft, and so we looked at it, and he was just running a really aggressive lean mixture. And so the two things that I think we feel like it's our responsibility for educational purposes, but unless you're really looking at the numbers, a lot of us are taught to from primary pilot days is, you pull the mixture knob until it gets rough and you turn it in a half turn, and that's where you run the airplane. Well, my personal experience has been the SureFly will ignite a so much leaner fuel mixture ratio that if you just do that pull and turn it in, you may be still significantly leaner than what you were before. And so, especially in a carbureted engine where we're not getting completely steady fuel distribution, you may, and most likely will get an occasional miss at that point. And so what I recommend now is for folks is go get your book numbers, lean to those book numbers, then start working the lean to peak and see what, how slow are you willing to go, and what point does your engine get rough? The other thing that this particular RV guy, he was running cylinder temps down in the 250-degree range. And so I went out and talked to most of the engine folks that I could round that would, talk to me. And, most of those guys say that, let's just say most of every engine guy that I talked to said, you really need to have cylinder temps above 300, and most of them would prefer to be around 320. And much colder than that is the opinion is that you're not burning deposits off. And so you're going to cause yourself some problems. And so just because you can run, 100, and that's my personal experience with the RV is at 100 degrees lean to peak, I'm below 300 degree cylinder temps. And so I don't run there very often because it's, 20 knots slower, but it's, it's really cold cylinder temps. And so, but I do it just so that, to show that it is possible. But I really don't recommend running there. I'm reading the next question here. So the question is, if we add gamies, do you get the same benefit as gaming injectors on two mags? And so, yeah, I think the magneto, my personal experience has been when I ran a mag and a SureFly for a while, and I could get the airplane configured so that if I was flying along and I turned the magneto off, I would see a 30 to maybe 60 degree EGT rise. It was a little bit. So that tells me that the mag was doing a little bit of work, but not much. And then conversely, if I turn the magneto back on, I turn the SureFly off, I would see 300 to 400 degree EGT rises. So that to me, that tells me there's a lot of waste going out the exhaust as still burning and going out the pipe as waste. I could also get it to the point where if I turned the SureFly off and I was just running on the magneto, the engine would just die. And so I do know that the SureFly will ignite a much leaner mixture than the magneto will. So I think that answers that question. But that looks like the last question on the chat. Does anyone else have questions they want to jump in here on? Or
yes, Hank Spellman. What has been your history of problem areas after starting after the thing is working after installation?
Mm-hmm. So by far the biggest problem we've had so far, and this is kind of pointed at the AMPs and IAs in the group, but so we have had as we've expanded and got into more and more aircraft, we found that we have some 24-volt aircraft that have a intermittent rough running engine. And so we've been working on this for quite some time now. And so my jab at the AMPs and IAs in the group, and no offense guys, but every time I've gone to one of these aircraft, I've found significant grounding and power issues. So my first thing I want to tell you is I'm going to save all of you, $1,000 or so. And the next time your cowling's open or your airplane's in maintenance, have someone take a look at the battery cables, the grounds. I recently, so just a couple of things that I've found recently. I'll leave brands out of this just so that it's, I've pulled a number 2 gauge ground wire completely out of the crimp. I found a battery negative post was not backed up when it was torqued down, and so the post itself would rotate in the battery. I found an engine. So, we need a good ground path. It's electrical circuit, so I need a good path from and back to the battery. And so I was recently out on an aircraft, and the engine was grounded to the airframe via an Adel clamp around the engine mount. Now they did take the cushion off of it, but it was around the Adel, and it was, of course, it's paint and rust. And so, but if you're doing those things, you're not doing your starter any favors by trying to pull 600 amps through grounds like that. And so you're making the starter work really hard. You're making your alternator work as well. So my challenge to you guys is go look at your electrical system. The airplane that we've been doing some testing on over the last couple of days, same thing. The both power and positive and negative ring terminals or battery cables are have some issues. So so go check those things. I think we're all really excited to go put Garmin's in and cool toys, and very rarely and I've seen this a lot in the alternator business as well, but very rarely do we go back and check those electrical things. And so the more and more electronic equipment we get in these airplanes, the more and more critical that's going to be. So, Hank, that's by far the biggest issue we've seen is these issues like this. The other is power not being brought to the battery, improper grounds. We did a lot of ugly stuff to the SureFlies early on, and so I would say that the really stupid stuff we got out of the way early. We've had a few intermittent electrical problems. We had our guys were putting they're messing with we were having a company, so the main board is done. Back up for just a second. So I'm very proud to say that the SureFly unit is almost made completely in Texas. So we laughed that we're going to put a made in Texas stamp on the side of it. But the board house that does our electronics is down in Austin, and then the interconnect wiring is done down the street from them. And so one of the more recent issues we had was the company that was doing the interconnect wiring. We think there's a manifold pressure sensor on the board, and so we think they were using it as the device that they were putting in their clamp. And so we had some failures on manifold pressure sensors, and so we caught that early. But we did, some of those came out, and so we made some corrective actions there. And so there's some on electronics, you can put some underfill on stuff, and so now you pretty much will break the board in half to before that happens. And the same thing, some vibrations studies early on. Very early in the development, we actually broke some pins on the board due to vibration. I'm not at liberty to say how much, but you'd be surprised at the vibration levels on the back of an engine. It's an ugly world to live in. So
I understand. I'm an electrical engineer. I used to make in charge of quality control after ham-fisted people didn't follow directions.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like you really haven't had many service problems that were truly your fault.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that we've had, like I said, that was kind of, that's a self-inflicted wound. So we were early on, the company itself is 6 years, I think we're going on 6 years old now, 7 years. Very early on, we were very selective on getting product in the field because, we knew we were going to do some silly stuff, and we wanted to limit that so that we didn't, go get out there and have thousands of units out there and go, hey, we really screwed up bad on this. And so we were selective, and so we were a little slow in rolling things out, but that was on purpose. So
been there, done that.
Yeah, well, luckily, some of my business partners have been around for a while, and the saying is, you won't live long enough to make everybody else's mistakes. And so I never claimed to be a smart guy, just smart enough to follow what somebody tells me occasionally.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
On the other side of the current question, what's the idle current when the bag is off and you still have it connected to the battery?
So when you turn the P lead off, so basically when you ground the P lead, you're putting the unit in standby mode, and in standby mode, it draws less than 1 milliamp. And if you just turn the P lead on and the engine and it's not running, it's in the 30 milliamp range. So you really discharging battery is, any kind of clock or memory storage devices that's already in the airplane will have more current draw than what we do.
Great, thanks.
Any additional questions? You guys are letting me off easy tonight. Look through. So I told you that we got the TAC 2 certified, and so we're working on that. I'm just going through my notes here. The normally aspirated twins are coming, so I'm working on it, guys. We should get there pretty quick. And then after that, there's some, I hate to call them outliers, but there's some other, airplanes that just got missed via typos or stuff, and so we'll pick those up. But that's really kind of all I have, unless someone else has questions. I really appreciate the time this evening, and thanks. And you guys are, my email is jason@surefly.aero. If you go to the website, it's there as well. And if you think of something later, please shoot me an email or give me a call, and I'll be happy to discuss it.
And you said,
Yeah,
Jason?
I got a quick question. Oh,
yes, sir.
Go
Nope,
ahead.
you first, Hans.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a twin Comanche, and I have the EI CGR 30Ps on there. So
yes,
they're taking the tachometer reading right off the mags.
Correct.
So how does that affect your system?
So for the EI, so normally, so a normal mag, let's talk about the P-lead pulse off of magneto first. And so a normal magneto P-lead pulse is around 300 volts, 200 to 300 volts. And so most companies will put somewhere, EI included, will put either a 42 or 78K kilo ohm resistor in line to knock that 300 volt down to something that won't blow out their input op amps. Our P-lead signal is a 60 volt spike. It's riding on a positive 10 volt DC offset. And so to make it work with the EI, you'll need to reduce that value from either the 42 or 78K to that, somewhere around the 16 ohm resistor. 16 kilo ohm resistor will do the trick on the EIs. Sorry, mine just went blank. There's another one in there that we same thing, but yeah, you just need to lower the resistance value, and it should work fine. And then ultimately this TAC2 was designed to be like the T1A screw in sensor mag replacement. So when we go to the dual installations, you'll just, if you have that mag, or that sensor, you'll remove it and put the TAC2 in place of that.
Okay, sounds easy. Thanks.
I might have new information on that carb mod, just because it would be cool to be able to run Lane of Peak without worrying about it in our little carbureted 180s and 250s. So Billy Brooks, William Brooks put in some very cool information into the chat window. And so I passed it on to Zach Grant, who came back and said the 4160, this is about carburetors, because one of the things, to go back to it, I had been told that I couldn't run Lane of Peak in a carbureted 180, though, at least not the ones in our airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was part of the reason I put that question in there, because we get such great time in our engines. It's not that uncommon for our Lycomas to go to 3,000 hours, that I wanted to get better performance and fuel economy and starting and all that stuff and still get to 3,000 hours. So the information I just got back is, and we'll be working with Dave Gittleman and probably with Billy and Zach to try to make sure we get this all written up right. But the information I just got back, which I'm going to read because I'm too ignorant to understand what it really means, to be blunt, is 4164 is richer than 3878. This has to do with, let's see, the 10-4164 version of the MS-MA4-5 carburetor, which is just about as rich as the 10-3878M, is legal in a Comanche according to the type certificate. So that's why we're talking about these numbers. So the 4164 is richer than the 3878. Ideally, there needs to be a jet set about halfway in between the two, and that was the M mod that Dave Gittleman mentioned. It basically just slightly bored out, more like polished, the main jet. It worked and has been done many times on the 3878s and Cherokees and Comanches as well. For all you engine hackers there, I'm going to shut up and let you guys discuss, because it sounds like something a bunch of us might want to do.
Well, it was also done on the Moonies. They had a richer, when the carbureted Moonies, that is.
Yes, and actually, so Billy PM'd that to me, that initially the Washington FSDO said that the big M mod was only for the Moonies, but it sounds from what Zach is saying like it has been done successfully for our Comanches as well.
For me, it was a requirement.
Fill us in.
Well, it was just running so lean, and I thought it had something to do with the induction system, frankly. That it didn't run well with that lean setup. And frankly, the way I learned about this is I had a brand new engine, and I went down to Williamsport, which I lived in Rochester, so that was an easy flight. And we spent hours with them, and finally they came around and said, you know what, this needs a richer carburetor, and that's when we discovered what a vast difference it made. And that was like, I think in 1980, might have been a little earlier than that.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about this because when Jason and I were talking to get ready for this, he talked about getting that Comanche 180 engine into his RV. And then he talked about the kind of power he was getting and the fact that he was running lean of peak. And I said, I didn't think we could do that because, you know, I don't have you guys' knowledge. And he told me about boring out that jet and then like having a different carburetor, but it sounds like we might be able to do something that kind of hacks our engine safely.
And yeah, and just for clarification as well. So the drilling of the jet really was in the case of the RV, was to get enough fuel in for cooling for takeoff. I was seeing temperatures in excess of 420 on takeoff, and so the RV is fairly tightly cowled, and so you can't get more air in. You got to put fuel in for the cooling, and that was pretty standard with the RVs when they would. The very early RVs they were taking engines off of aircraft and just pulling them, straight transplants. And that was one of the things that they found was that, because of the inlet size and the arrangement of the intake air, that you needed a richer circuit for takeoff to keep cylinder temps and cooling. But like I said, that, something that CJ and I talked about, I didn't touch on this, but so like I said, my engine, I'd like to claim credit, but it's just incredibly well balanced. And at one point, I had the old brass floats in that carburetor, and so I was having an issue, and so I pulled it out. And so a friend of mine had another carb, and so we just stuck it on while I was going through mine. And with his carburetor, I couldn't get anywhere near as lean a peak as I could with mine. And same carburetor, nothing changed. It just was just the arrangement of, something was slightly different in there. But since then, I have, like I said, I've discovered that once you're at wide open throttle and everything's set up, just by playing with the throttle plate position, you can really move fuel. It's surprising how much you can vary individual cylinder temps by playing with that, of just basically moving fuel around.
Particularly on the 4-cylinder engines.
Correct.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I don't know that on the 6 cylinders, I don't know that would work as well, but I was just really surprised at that, of how much you could vary those things. And like I said, with a little time, you just tweak it in, and it's surprisingly
you learned that early
so.
On a Comanche 180.
I actually want to write this up. We have so many. I mean, this needs to go in the top 10 tips for new Comanche owners.
Well, it's not a do-it-yourself project.
But it sounds like it's really has a lot of effect, and I didn't know about it.
It does have a lot of effect.
So,
hey, Jason, one more question.
Yes, sir.
So in the STC, the installation manual, it states that in order to have the advanced timing, you have to have cylinder head temperature monitoring capability. Is that
correct
for all cylinders or just one?
The way it's written, you could interpret that one, from us, just trying to be ultra conservative in this and setting up for success. SureFly would prefer that you have all cylinders. You're monitoring all cylinders.
Okay. The way it was written, it's kind of up to interpolation.
Yeah, and that was not intentional. It was just kind of a, you know, as things move along and, you know, suggestions are made, and that's kind of the way it ended up. And, you know, but as a company, we would prefer that you monitor all cylinders. That way that way you have ultimate knowledge of what you're doing, especially if you're trying to go lean a peak.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I just want to ask, just to clarify for everybody else. Appreciate it.
Well, it looks like the questions have come to a stop.
Or I've been dying to ask this. What is the next like visionary thing on your development scale? There's been so much innovation coming out. What is it that you're planning to work on next? Give us a teaser.
I'm not at liberty to say at the moment, but
come on.
No, it's way too early, and I'll leave you with this. There are a couple of things in the work. So we got to get SureFly, you know, down a little further down the road, and then that'll free us up to go work on some other things. But we do have some cool things. I think you'll really like the next couple things in the pipeline.
Ion propulsion.
Sorry?
Ion propulsion.
If I figured that out, I'm going to be on the back of my yacht.
There you go.
Don't forget ramjets, right? Oh my. Jason, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us. This is really fascinating.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for the time. I really do appreciate it. You know, I know there's things that we missed, but yeah, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call, and we'll work through them. And we look forward to talking to you guys again. Please give me a call back sometime and put me on the schedule again.
You know, we actually really want to do that. So first of all, can you say your email address again more slowly?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I do. Again, my wife says I talk a lot and fast. So my email is Jason, so JASON at SureFly, SUREFLY .aero, and that's AERO. So Alpha Echo Romeo Oscar. And yeah, we had to pay extra for that. So.
And let's see, I've got one last text. Oh yeah. So unofficially, by the way, was that thing about the mods in our airplanes. Good deal. And we are going to want to have you back. We're going to make sure that this recording came through, but if it didn't, we'll probably ask you, Jason, if you can come back sooner rather than later, because we have very large numbers of people that time shift and come and listen to the recordings.
Okay.
For everybody who wants, so a bunch of it will be there, but in case those Wi-Fi dropouts, they've never happened before. This is our first time. But due to a personal tragedy with one of the normal Zoom team, we didn't have the second backup running. So we'll see. But if it didn't all get there, then we might ask you to do this again and give everybody a lot more advance notice next time. So
perfect. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate the time, and you know, feel free to reach out to me if you have a follow-up question. So thanks again.
All right. And everybody, if y'all wanted to chat, hang or fly with your buds, we'll leave the meeting up for a little bit, but we're going to stop the recording.
Thanks again.